This lesson is direct variation, and our learning target is I can model and solve problems using direct variation. So you may be familiar with this, or it may be new information, but I think it's pretty easy. Alright, so a direct variation is a specific relationship in which there is a constant ratio meaning fraction, and the ratio is always going to be y divided by x. This constant of variation is variable k, and that looks really confusing. So here's the big thing. The direct variation equations are written in the form y equals k times x. This is what you want to remember when talking about direct variation. It's always going to look in this form. So k is a number. It's just some number. Sometimes we know what the k is, sometimes we have to find it, so just kind of like a placeholder for that. There should be no addition or subtraction. It should just be a number times x. That's all it should be, and it's really not difficult. Okay, so these are two different problems, sorry. Okay, so we're going to find the constant k. We're going to identify k, and then we're going to write a direct variation equation. So two things going on. Okay, so the direct variation equation looks like this. Or if you were just going to try to isolate k, remember that k and x are being multiplied. So if I wanted to get rid of the x, I could divide it. So another way to find k is to do y divided by x, which is what this thing meant up here, the ratio y divided by x. So that's how you find k. So all I have to do is choose one of these points. I'm going to do this one. So this is 1, 4. Remember, this is your x and your y coordinates. I'm going to take the x and I'm going to plug it over here. And I'm going to take the y and I'm going to plug it right there. So let me make this a little prettier. K equals 4 divided by 1, and 4 divided by 1 is 4. So this is how the equation normally looks. Now we know that k is 4, we can just substitute it in. So here is my direct variation equation for those 4 points at the beginning. Okay. On the other side, we're going to do the exact same thing. It's just in a table form. I'm going to pick one set of coordinate points. So -12, -8. Remember, this is my x and this is my y. K is found by doing y divided by x. So k equals -8 divided by -12, which reduces to positive 1/4. And then remember that direct variation looks like this. And now that if I know that k is 1/4, I can fill that in. So my direct variation equation for that table is y equals 1/4 x. Just because you guys are super smart and I think you're going to go higher in math, I want you to understand that I also could write this as x over 4, and that would be the exact same equation. So knowing and understanding equivalent forms helps out a lot in math. Okay, so two different problems once again. We're going to find the missing values. Okay, so I need to find what k equals. I know that k equals y divided by x. This point over here has the information I need. There's nothing missing. So I'm going to take 2, -4. That's my x and my y coordinate. So k equals -4 divided by 2. So k equals -2. Alright, so I can fill that into my direct variation equation. Okay, so I used the first point to figure out what k is and write the equation. The only new thing that I'm going to do is I need to find the missing value. So it tells me that x is -6, and I'm trying to find y. So now I'm going to replace x with -6, and I'm just going to do what it says. It says -2 times -6, which gives me a positive 12, so that missing value is a positive 12. So it's just like the problems we did over here, we found the k, we wrote the equation, and then we used the equation to find what we were actually looking for. So same thing right here. Alright, so k equals y divided by x. Here's my x and here's my y. So that equals 16 divided by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So now I can write my direct variation equation. And then I'm going to use the second point to find what I'm actually looking for. So this time a little bit different. I'm trying to find x when y is 24. So I'm going to replace y with 24. And I'm trying to get x by itself. So the way I get rid of multiplying by 4 is I would divide both sides by 4. So x equals 6. But once again, we found the constant k, we wrote the direct variation equation, and then we tried to figure out what we were trying to solve for. Okay. So notice these are gradually getting a little harder each time. Okay. So it says if x equals negative 18, oops, sorry, I just read that wrong. If y equals negative 18 when x equals 3, that's your first information. And then we're going to find x when y equals 30. That's what I'm going to use at the end. Okay. So once again, first thing I need to do is find the k. So y is negative 18 when x is 3. Negative 18 divided by 3 is negative 6. Now I can write my direct variation equation. And I'm going to use the part in orange to figure out what I'm solving for. So I'm going to find x when y is 30. So I'm going to replace that y with 30. And I'm going to try to get x by itself. So the way I get rid of multiplying by 6 is to divide both sides by 6. So this is negative 5 equals x. So if you haven't noticed, they're pretty much the exact same problems, the same process. They just look a little different. Okay, so I'm going to use the first part to figure out what k is to write my equation, and I'm going to use the last part as what I'm actually solving for. So k equals y divided by x. Y is 80 when x is 32. You get 2.5. It's okay to get decimals. So now I can write my direct variation equation. Alright, and now I'm going to use the part in orange to figure out what I'm looking for. So I'm going to find x when y is 100. So I'm going to replace y with 100. Alright, and the way I would get rid of multiplying by 2.5 is I would divide by 2.5 on both sides. So x equals 40. Alright, let's do some more. Alright, so these are two different problems. Remember, the part in blue is how I find my k and how I write my equation. The part in orange is what I'm actually going to find. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and try these. So pause the video in 1, 2, 3. So for both of them, the first thing you're going to do is figure out what the k value is. You're going to figure it out by doing y divided by x. The next thing you're going to do is write your direct variation equations. And the last thing you're going to do is do what you're actually supposed to find. So for the first one, I got y equals negative 30. And then for the second one, I got y equals 5. If you did not get that, you can ask me a question and we'll try to figure it out. If I'm wrong, which sometimes happens, I'll fix it. Okay. So now, we're going to look at these application problems, or fancy name for word problems. Okay. Because this is usually how it's going to look. Alright, so up here is the helpful hint. When solving a direct or inverse variation word problem, underline the two things. So there's always going to be two things being compared, and you should underline them so you know what they are. Assign the first thing as variable y and the second thing as x. So I want you to read the problem, and I want you to see if you can figure out what are the two things being compared. So pause the video and try it in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the two things being compared are income of a computer analyst and number of hours works. Okay, so it says, assign the first thing as variable y. So anytime we say y, we're talking about income of the computer analyst. And assign the second thing variable x. So x is going to be number of hours worked. Okay. The other important thing is make sure you actually read it, because eventually these are going to be direct, inverse, or combined. So right now we're just doing direct. So we know it looks like this because that's the formula or the equation for direct variation. All right. The next part, I'm going to do it in green, is going to tell us how to find K. If an analyst earns 256, so remember that's Y, for working 8 hours, that's my orange, that's my K. Oh, sorry, I was going to do that orange. Alright, so I'm going to pause right there. We're going to find K, and we're going to write the direct variation equation right now. So the way I find K is to divide by 8 on both sides. So K equals 32, and now I'm going to write my equation. And I'm going to do this last part in purple. Oh, never mind. Sorry, we already solved it. It said find the constant variation. Sorry, I should have read the question before I actually got you to do it. Okay, so that's just how you find the K. It's going to get a little bit harder in just a minute. So we read it, we find the two things they're comparing. The first thing is always going to be your Y variable. The second thing is always going to be your X value. Your X variable, sorry. Then you're going to use the next part of the sentence to find the K value and write the direct variation equation. Okay. Alright, so I want you to try this one. I want you to figure out what are the two things being compared. I want you to label one of them X, one of them Y, and then I want you to see if you can find the constant of variation. So pause the video and try it in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so two things being compared, gallons of water, number of minutes. Y is the first thing I see, so that's my gallons of water. X is my number of minutes. So now I'm going to use this equation, and I'm going to use the next part of the sentence, and I'm going to find the constant of variation. So I get 6. And I'm just going to go ahead and write the direct variation equation because I want you to get comfortable doing that. Alright, so hopefully you understand how to find the constant and how to write the direct variation equation. And now we're going to do some full-on word problems. Alright, same thing. I want you to find the X and the Y value, and then I want you to find the constant, and I want you to write the direct variation equation. Pause the video and try it in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is what you should have. Y stands for sales, X stands for number of people. K equals 12,000 divided by 800, which is 15, which makes our direct variation equation Y equals 15 times X. Okay, the very last part of the sentence is going to be what you're trying to actually find. Determine how many people, X, attend if the sales are 15,000. So now I know that Y is actually 15,000. I know my constant is 15, and I'm trying to find out X, the number of people. I need to get X by itself, so to get rid of timesing by 15, I would divide both sides by 15. So X is going to be 1,000. It would have to be 1,000 people to get $15,000 in sales is what you're doing. Okay. Alright, I want you to pause the video. I want you to find what X and Y are. I want you to find the constant, and I want you to write your direct variation equation. Pause the video and try it in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here's what you should get. 1 over 160 is the same thing as 0.00625. I just keep it in fraction form just because that's what I like to do. Alright, remember the last part is what you're actually looking for. So, how many ounces are required for a 200-pound adult? So, oh, that looks so ugly. Okay, let me try that again. 160. So X represents the weight, So I'm just going to multiply these together. Alright, so 1.25 ounces is how much that person should use. Which is why you shouldn't switch medicines, because they're made for your body and your body only. Okay. So I want you to do the same thing. I want you to pause the video. I want you to find what y equals, what x equals, find the constant, and write the direct variation equation. You can go ahead and solve the whole thing if you want to, but I just expect you to get to the point where you can write the direct variation equation and pause the video and try it in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here's what you should get. And then the last part is we want to find how many shares of stock will she need to receive, how many shares of stock will she need to receive $24? So we know that x is now 24, and we just need to multiply those two numbers together to figure out how many shares. And the answer is 10. Alright. So here's the last one. I want you to try the entire thing. I want you to pause the video, see what you get in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the only way to get, well, not the only way, there's two things you could do. And it just depends on how you were taught. You could divide both sides by 1/15, or you can multiply by both sides by 15. I'm just going to divide just because that's what I do. If you do this, you have to put parentheses around 1/15 because it is a fraction. So if you get a different answer than me, check to make sure that you did that. Alright, so 750 is what you should get. Alright, so hopefully that wasn't too bad. Remember, you just want to remember this formula for direct variation, and remember that k equals y divided by x whenever you're talking about direct variation. If you can remember those two things, you're going to be great. Go ahead and go to Haiku, try your assignment, let me know if you have questions.